with Paul Harrell.
Okay, folks. On that note, let's welcome Mr. David Crow from the Faulkner County Tea Party back to the show. David, it's always great to have you on.
Hey, Paul, thank you so much. On that chug hole thing, that is classic Dan Douglas. Man, that guy is he's out there. What is it? 5 votes, and we would have not had Dan Douglas back in the legislature.
Yeah, he barely won his primary. Yeah, and the thing is we actually may be having State Representative Dan Douglas on the program soon. Which is it's that's in the works. But to talk about an unrelated issue, I'm sure we'll get into our differences on taxes. You say one thing about Dan Douglas is that his monologues are comedy gold. I mean, as we've demonstrated, and he certainly seems like or he is a nice guy. It's just I disagree with the policies that he advocates. So.
Right, exactly. He seems to be a nice guy. He spoke at the FOIA committee this month, and interesting fellow.
Yeah, and that was what I was interested in having him on and talk about that FOIA situation. So, David, first of all, I'm totally excited about being in Conway today at noon at Larry's Pizza. I want to invite everybody out there to come and hear the great work that you guys are doing at the Faulkner County Tea Party. Can you tell us a little bit about what's on the agenda for today?
Well, actually, you're on the agenda. That's you're the main guy that's going to be on today. We'll have our opening. We'll have a few comments about things going on around the city, but then we'll be turning it over to Paul, and we're going to have a heavy dose of Paul Harrell.
Yeah,
I'll be taking. Are so looking forward to it.
I'll be taking a lot of questions, I'm sure, and that's kind of the. I mean, I've got some remarks prepared, but I've also really enjoyed just taking questions from the audience. You know, every time I talk down there, it's always a good time, and it's good to be around people who are engaged and want to really just guard the liberties. Of the people, and they recognize that government tends to grow and, drown out those liberties. And so, and I know that's what you've been fighting for a very long time. I also understand that you and your wife, Janet, recently celebrated your anniversary. I want to say congratulations. How many years was it again?
46. We had 46 years of wedding, of anniversary.
Wow.
And amazing. I mean, everybody knows me, and Janet knows that I'm married up in a big way. And so, thank goodness for Janet. I just so love her. She's so special.
46 years. That is amazing. Congratulations on that, David. David, I wanted to know, have you been following any of this Trump tariff situation? What are your thoughts on it? Because, in conservative circles, you'll hear some people say, conservatives shouldn't support tariffs, or they shouldn't support, what the president is doing, what some people have called economic saber rattling, trying to get America a better deal. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I totally am a Trumpster. I totally back everything he's about. Trump is got an agenda, which is make America great again, and I think I follow everything he does, and I endorse literally everything. Somehow, some ways he goes about it, I would necessarily do it the same way. But let me tell you what, the guy is incredibly successful. So go ahead, raise those tariffs on China, go to 25%. Doesn't bother me at all. And I'm a happy camper that he's about doing the things he's doing, because I think his ultimate goal is to go to a level playing field. Let's erase all tariffs on both sides of the, on the agenda, and not only with the EU, but everybody. And I just think that's the best path to take and put us on a level playing field. And in each of those cases, we're going to win.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's what they're afraid of. The goal of the level playing field is certainly where we want to be. And
right.
I find it, I find it when Democrats and
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine this morning and always. You can sound off on the program. It is facebook.com/Conduit News. You can also give us a phone call or a text message, 870-275-9799. Man, we got a great show for you. Coming up at the bottom of the next hour, we're going to be talking with Mr. Jason Dobson. He is a candidate, Republican candidate for state representative in District 12. That is currently held by a Democrat by the name of Chris Ritchie. We're going to see what his motivations were for running, as well as probably going to look at Democrat Chris Ritchie's voting record, see what's going on there. So let's talk about this for a little bit. I was watching the national news stories over the weekend. And by the way, I had a fantastic weekend, so to speak. But I'm gonna fill you in on that a little later. It was anybody that follow, or anybody that's on. We'll dive into that a little later. Yeah, exactly, Joe. Thank you. So I was following some of these national news stories, and I couldn't believe how much China is being mentioned now as a part of this national narrative. I mean, it started 3 or 4 weeks ago when it comes to the reports, the FBI, CIA, really worried about China, their military advancement. Now, of course, here at Conduit News, we have been contrasting that with the Chinese companies that are being recruited, actively recruited here by the current Arkansas administration in an effort to, quote, create jobs. And we've kind of compared that to the claims, the reported figures, that Chinese individuals over here are stealing somewhere in between, somewhere around $600 billion a year in intellectual property. And we're just wondering what the plan is moving forward. Maybe you didn't know of the threat. Well, now we know. And, as far as I know, everything is still moving forward with the 4 Chinese companies going to move here and invest money. Yet they have that strange developing nation status with the World Trade. What developing nation in the World Trade Organization invests billions of dollars in other countries? It's an interesting question. So I'm watching all of this. The first national story that kind of popped into my brain here is just kind of a lighthearted one. It really shows you what the kind of disdain that the global elites have for President Donald Trump. It's astounding. Headline, did you know that Google declared Angela Merkel the leader of the free world? That's right. Angela Merkel is the Chancellor of Germany, according to Google, is the leader of the free world. Thanks to its reliance on information from Wikipedia, the top Google search result for leader of the free world is not the President of the United States, with whom the term is normally associated, but crisis-engulfed German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Searches for the term currently return a picture of Merkel as the top result. Isn't that fascinating? Does anybody think that there is... if anybody wants to look up the definition of double standard here, there is certainly... And if anybody wants like a I don't know, a crash course in the deep state, you could start with this little factoid right here. Can you scroll down just a little bit? Look at the screenshot, this Google screenshot here. Leader of the free world. Google that. Angela Merkel pops up. I just find this fascinating. That this kind of that there's this much power out there, and there are people. Now you got to understand something here. This isn't a grassroots movement of people that. I mean, I know there's some people that are like, well, she's now the leader of the free world because Donald Trump is just the worst. No, this is a very small group of people, or one or two people that are like, I'm so upset. You know what? Let's do this little. Let's tweak this little thing right here. I mean, that's what this is. And I know that if you scroll down, there's more of an explanation, to what's going on here. But still, I mean, they say this is really about Wikipedia, Google's dependence on Wikipedia, and everything else. I find it pretty fascinating. But here's the China rub this morning. Over at Breitbart News, we have Virgil at Breitbart News with a headline, President Trump's focus is where it should be on China. Now, he mentioned China in his rally in Pennsylvania on Thursday evening. We played a portion of that clip for you on our Friday broadcast, our Johnny Cash Friday broadcast. If you haven't seen it, you can check it out. It's over at conduitnews.com. But essentially, I'm not going to read this whole article because it's lengthy, but I would recommend it to you if you're going to read something today. This would be a good place to start if you're wanting to get some national news or something like that. If you scroll down here, it talks about the history of war and how if you think about different wars or different conflicts, virtually every war since anywhere is a variation of of basically a couple of themes. Which side can pull together the stronger force, and you use other countries to do it, right? Scroll down a little bit more, Joe, so people can follow along. He writes, yes, skilled generalship and brave soldiering can overcome odds, but even then, victory comes to the side that can better aim its fighting power at the enemy's weakness. With these lessons in mind, in part one of this series, we observed that past President FDR gambled on good relations with Russia because he wanted the help of the Red Army to defeat Hitler's force in the Second World War. And in part two, we noted that while opponents of Roosevelt's alliance policy made compelling arguments, the arguments for FDR's alliance were stronger. The strategy here. In fact, the alliance that Uncle Sam put together back then, including the Soviet Union, numbered more than 1 billion people. By contrast, the Axis had fewer than a quarter that many. To be sure, the Allied victory was neither easy nor cheap, and yet the numerical advantage, including associated war material advantages, guaranteed an Allied win. So now, in the third and concluding series, we consider how the lessons of past successes can light the path for us today, and we confront the next big geopolitical challenge, the threat from China. By now, it's obvious that China is the major rival to the United States. Yes, the Russians or the Iranians or ISIS might get more attention, but students of geopolitics know that China, with quadruple the population of the United States and an economy growing faster than ours, is the ultimate threat. The scholar Michael Lind, now at the LBJ School at the University of Texas, has long written knowingly about American strategy. Recently, he has argued that as we face China, we are already in a Cold War II. And in this second Cold War, Lind continues, the United States must play to its strengths, which are in technology and economics. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but technology, think about that. The U.S. must play to its strengths in technology. While avoiding the danger of being trapped in prolonged and costly proxy wars, the United States must also avoid wasting precious defense dollars on equipping the military for imaginary conventional naval wars with China or ground wars with Russia that will never happen. In Cold War II, economic instruments will eclipse military instruments in importance without replacing them entirely. In other words, Linda's saying we don't have time for stupid sideshow scenarios, including, as Lynn puts it, imaginary land wars with Russia. But again, if the state of Arkansas was recruiting Russian companies and giving them our tax dollars to move here, well, then that would be bad, right? But it's okay to do it with China. Again, somebody tell me the reason. Somebody give me a reason why it's okay for one but not the other. Now, let's get back to technology and economics, okay? What are the Chinese trying to do? They're trying to steal our intellectual property. They're trying to steal our technology. They've been doing this for a while, $600 billion a year. Again, why should we be doing these deals with these Chinese companies? Look at this headline. You know what happened Friday after we got on the show? The United States Attorney's Office from the Eastern District, Cody Highland, announced that 2 Chinese men had been indicted in Little Rock, and they're accused of conspiring to steal rice production technology. And the story here is quite fascinating. It's quite fascinating. The men who have been indicted, Lou, we're just going to call the guy Lou. He's 49. Also, Sun Yu, 36. On conspiracy to steal trade secrets and conspiracy to commit interstate transportation of stolen property. So essentially these guys were here back in 2013. They visited several rice research and production facilities in the United States, including the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Dale Bumpers National Rice Research Center in Stuttgart. Liu was a professor and Sun was a research associate at the Chinese Institute. Upon the men's arrival at the airport in Honolulu on their way back to China, U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents found stolen rice seeds in the men's luggage, the release said. It noted that the stolen seeds included some from both the Stuttgart Research Center and the Kansas production facility that they had also visited. Now, here's the issue. Scrolling back up, this has to do with a lot of investment. Okay? Cody Highland said that the men were indicted over their involvement in the theft of rice seeds designed for use in the medical field. The seeds were developed by Ventria Bioscience, a company based in Colorado, with a rice production facility in Kansas. They said the company used technology to create rice seeds that contain certain proteins, which could then be removed from the rice after growth and used in medicine and pharmaceutical products. Cody Highland quoted as saying in the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette, these rice seeds may be small, but the research and investment that went into the science that made them possible is of great value. Noting that Ventria Bioscience had invested about $75 million in developing the intellectual property behind these seeds. Now, knowing this, folks, we should be asking ourselves, the Chinese involvement over here in what else are they doing? And is it a good idea to continue with these investments? If you're going to give away taxpayer dollars to big business to try to get them to move here, again, full disclosure, I think that's a terrible idea. I don't think it does anything that you think it does. The only thing it does is allow ASA or whoever else to have a great press conference, and the media, the lapdog media, reports, hey, this company's coming here, and sometime in the next 100 years, 20 jobs are going to come to this rural area. And you get the political capital because the people walking around think, oh, okay, well, awesome, he's bringing jobs here. And yet a lot of that stuff never materializes. And if it does, you get a terrible return on your investment. In some cases, studies show it's a net negative economic impact. And most of the studies since 1980 show that there is no economic impact. Now, how is that? Anyway, the statistics are on our side. Economic development via corporate welfare is not good, right? The statistics are completely on our side. I'm against it. But if you're going to do it, which all 50 states do, should we be doing it with China? That's my question. Somebody tell me where I'm wrong here. The phone number is 870-275-9799. You can call or text 870-275-9799. We're going to take a break, and the China theme doesn't stop. I'm going to tell you where else it comes up here in just a minute. It has to do with now with Senator Dianne Feinstein. Yeah, for 20 years. The FBI now says for 20 years there was a mole in the Dianne Feinstein office that worked with the Chinese. Back in just a moment. Both Republicans are upset. More often than not, Donald Trump's doing something right. He's doing something that the one thing that no other Democrat or Republican has done. I mean, whether it's moving the embassy to Jerusalem like everybody said they were going to do but never did, and he did it, or whether it's these tariffs, or whether it's, when he came back from the Helsinki summit, everybody, Democrats and Republicans, were both critical of him. And it's like, okay, well, you must have done something right then, Don. Right. I mean, it's fascinating to watch. I will say that much. It's fascinating to watch him govern. And then, of course, you have the leftists in the media who are, continuing to lie to people, work people up in a frenzy. They want the ratings. They want this emotional-based coverage. And so I'm curious, though, the Koch brothers this week, they came out very critical of the president, saying that they have got to stop him from, enacting his agenda. What were your thoughts on that? Were you surprised?
Well, actually...
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal.
Ethics.
Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Yes, on Friday, it was reported that two Chinese men, Linda Satter at the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette with his headline, "Two Chinese Men Indicted in Little Rock Accused of Conspiring to Steal Rice Production Technology." It was a $75 million investment. While they were at the Stuttgart facility, the Dale Bumpers National Rice Research Center in Stuttgart, it is alleged that these two Chinese nationals stole some rice, and then the U.S. Customs found it on their way back to China. It was a very apparently expensive product, trying to use it in the medical field, some proteins or something. It's all, whatever. The point is, the Chinese are active in all 50 states, just like the FBI said. They're doing these basically economic espionage activities, stealing $600 billion a year in intellectual property. Now, the China narrative goes on here. Over at Mediaite, I find this interesting. This headline I got, I guess, on the 3rd, Trump blast dumbest man on television, Don Lemon, LeBron James, Dianne Feinstein, and late-night tweet storm. So I'm reading this article. Trump spent much of the night retweeting Drudge Report, including one about the New York Times controversial new editorial hire Sarah Jeong, who has been scrutinized for her anti-white, anti-cop tweets. We talked about this story on Friday, by the way. We'll have more on that in a little bit because the Candace Edwards was suspended on Twitter after essentially taking out all of, basically redoing the tweet Sarah Jeong did, but instead of leaving in the white people stuff, she just substituted it for Jewish people, and wouldn't you know, Twitter flagged it and said, oh, you can't do that. But yet Sarah Jeong says all this stuff about, cancel white people are goblins, that's why they can't be out in the sun, they need to be, tunnel dwellers, and Twitter's fine with it. Not only is Twitter fine with it, the New York Times is fine with it, and they hired this woman. Unbelievable. But so you keep scrolling down here, and we find that Donald Trump is interested in the fact that Democrat Senator Dianne Feinstein, according to new reports, has had a Chinese mole working in her office for 20 years. This local CBS affiliate in San Francisco, the Bay Area, has the story. New details emerged Wednesday about how a mole for the government of Communist China managed to stay by Senator Dianne Feinstein's side for nearly 20 years. It happened 5 years ago, but additional information just surfacing about how Bay Area senator's office was infiltrated by a Chinese spy. The Bay Area is a hotbed for Russian and Chinese espionage. You may remember the thick black smoke that was billowing from the building before Russian diplomats turned it over to authorities, presumably produced by burning documents. Now, all eyes are on Chinese intelligence in the Bay Area after the website Politico reported last week that a staffer for Senator Dianne Feinstein turned out to be a Chinese spy who reported back to government officials about local politics. On Wednesday, the San Francisco Chronicle uncovered additional details in a column written by reporters Phil Mattier and Andy Ross. The column revealed that the Chinese spy was Feinstein's driver, who also served as a gopher for her in the Bay Area, was a liaison to the Asian American community. He even attended Chinese consulate functions for the senator. Feinstein, who was chair of the Senate, what a driver. Man, you really worked yourself up. I'm just your driver, but I'll attend Chinese consulate functions for you. Feinstein, who was chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee at the time, was reportedly mortified when the FBI told her she'd been infiltrated. Investigators reportedly concluded the driver hadn't leaked anything of substance, and Feinstein forced him to retire. Well, who knows the nudges? I mean, who knows what actually happened? What decisions she made that she wouldn't have made had he not been there influencing her? Or just keeping an eye on her. Senator Dianne Feinstein is on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Hello? Senator Dianne Feinstein is on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Who knows what kind of James Bond gadgets this guy had? Get on her cell phone or who knows? You know what I'm saying? You're right there with her. The Senate Intelligence Committee. You're the chair. You're the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and you've got a Chinese spy working for you. This is insane. Now, the question is, from an Arkansas angle, why are we doing business with these Chinese companies? Why? Somebody tell us why. I mean, who is saying that this is a good idea? Why would we want to make a communist Chinese country richer by using our resources when we're in a trade war with them and when they are stealing $600 billion of intellectual property, when they are following around the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee? Why would we do that at a local level? Why would any governor of any state pursue this course and tell everybody it's good for the people of Arkansas? All I'm saying is I think there at the very least, there are indicators that suggest that that's not true. Let me know what you think. 870-275-9799. Back in a moment.
Wasn't just this week. The Koch brothers have been about this for quite some time. I don't think that they really truly favored having Trump in the office at all. And ever since he's been there, they've been against most of what Trump is about, and that's regretful. They've literally raised billions of dollars to fight the Trump agenda, and it saddens me to see what the Koch brothers have done. I mean, it really, essentially, the Koch brothers are about, their empire, and they want to keep it the way it is. Not only do they want to avoid the tariffs, they want cheap labor coming across the border. They're against a border wall, and so the Koch brothers.
Now, do they
contrary
actually?
To what a lot of people think?
Do they actually say that? Specifically about the border, because I've read stories, but do they actually say we don't want the border wall because we want to keep wages low? I mean, are they that transparent about it, or do we have to read between the lines?
Not necessarily. We have to read between the lines. Now, Tim Phillips has come out, and he's been on all the networks, especially the Fox News network, and they've spoken out against the tariffs, but they've also implied and stated some things regarding the open border, and that they see it as a negative, most of what Trump is doing. So they're doing it sort of backdoor, which oftentimes is what their agenda and the approach that they take. They not only, they're the ones that put all the money in AFP, and AFP does a lot of their bidding for them as well, because Tim Phillips is their president with AFP. So a lot of what the Koch brothers want to do is what AFP does on the front line with the movement, and I've seen that happen over the years, and it's very regretful what has happened with that organization.
So the border situation is one where the people of this country voted for Donald Trump, and you say what you want to about him. The one thing he was crystal clear about was he was going to build the wall. It was a huge issue. I had no idea it was as big as it was. I mean, I always lamented how violent things were down there and how we can't secure our borders and what an embarrassment it is. But throughout this week, I've been playing clips of Lou Dobbs. I remember when he had a CNN show, Lou Dobbs was talking about illegal immigration every single night, the violation of American sovereignty every single night. Now he's got a show on Fox Business, and he has brought attention to this, and the people, he had basically his thumb on the pulse of the people, and yet we now may have a situation where Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan say we're not going to fund.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, good morning. Good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Is my Facebook finally up and going? My goodness, Facebook is so slow for me today. I hope it's not slow for our listeners, but it is really creeping along today for me. I can't get it to load. Therefore, I'm having trouble getting the comments you guys are writing to me. Let's see if it works now. We'll wait and see. I think it's finally gonna load. Yes. So I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on this situation, what we've been covering so far. When it comes to the fact that we've got two Chinese nationals or Chinese men who were living here legally when they decided to try to steal rice technology from the Dale Bumper Stuttgart facility. And they were indicted on Friday by Cody Highland. Roger writes, Paul, have you seen Arkansas's employee pay increase? Yeah, I have. I understand. I know the outrage. We're gonna get to that. We may not get to it today, but maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. And for the rest of your life. Hey, isn't for the rest of your life part, isn't that what a government program's all about? We will tell you about the work requirements coming up at 7 o'clock. Only like 73 people have actually said that they were working under the work requirements for Medicaid expansion. We'll tell you about that. Also, little birds tell me that the software fairy has never shown up and the software doesn't work anymore. Yeah, little birds are telling me that. Unbelievable. All right, so let's go to this. On Friday, we told you about the New York Times, the editor, Sarah Jeong. Sarah, is that how you say it? Jeong or Jong? Speaking of Jeong, did you hear that Jean-Luc Picard, they're doing a new Star Trek The Next Generation, and Patrick Stewart's back? Did you hear about that? Anyway. So Twitter has now suspended the Turning Point USA Communications Director, Candace Owens, who is a threat to everything the left stands for because she thinks for herself. She's a threat. She's an African-American woman. She speaks out. She's conservative. She points out the left's hypocrisy. She's a threat to everything the progressive left stands for. Their identity politics. They're trying to define they're really trying to redefine what the word diversity means for them. You know, diversity means different people who look differently but think the same. You know how dangerous that is? The left version of diversity is people who look different but all think exactly the same way. That is strange. That is a totalitarian mentality. The actual term for diversity should incorporate a diverse opinion base. And so, you know, this is how they're not committed at all to equality, because they're intolerant of people that have views or think differently than they do. And all of a sudden their commitment to being colorblind, in my opinion, it goes away. When someone who is a certain color is supposed to think a certain way doesn't, well, we throw all that out the window then. Because they're trying to redefine what racism is. They're trying to redefine what diversity is. Alum Bokhari at Breitbart.com reports that Twitter temporarily suspended Candace Owens after she highlighted the racist post made by New York Times hire Sarah Jeong, and she did it in a really smart way. She mimicked the wording of Jeong's tweets with one important difference. Owens substituted the words Jewish people for white people in an attempt to show that some forms of racism are considered acceptable. Donald Trump Jr. made a similar point in an exclusive interview with Breitbart News this weekend when he said people would be losing their minds if Jeong had made her bigoted comments about black people or Hispanics. Twitter, already under fire from Republicans, including the president, over political bias, now appears to have proven her point. Even though Jeong made the following tweets, she has not been suspended, and the tweets remain undeleted. Dumb A effing white people marking up the internet with their opinions like dogs urinating on fire hydrants. Are white people genetically predisposed to burn faster in the sun, thus logically being only fit to live underground like groveling goblins? Meanwhile, Owens did receive a temporary suspension as well as an order to delete her tweets for using precisely the same language, but just swapping Jewish people for white people. Owens even clarified in the tweet itself that she was repeating Jeong's statements, not making an original statement of her own, and Twitter still banned her. Here's one of her tweets. Scroll down. This is what Candace Owens said. Candace Owens said, Jewish people are BS, like dogs urinating on fire hydrants. Hashtag cancel Jewish people. Are Jewish people genetically predisposed to burn faster in the sun? The above statements are from at New York Times editor Sarah Jeong. I simply swapped out the word white for Jewish. And she got banned. I mean, can you say double standard? It's incredible. This is what we're living in. And I don't know. I'm conflicted. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm very conflicted with like what to do next, you know? And the reason I say this is because whether it's Facebook that's now going to start censoring conservatives, or they are censoring, or you have Twitter that censors conservatives, it's frustrating. I mean, it's a medium that we are using right now, right? I use Twitter, I use Facebook, I use all this stuff. But at what point do we say enough's enough? I don't know if it was at Rush the other day who was saying if somebody will just create a platform and just not censor anything, would people use it? I don't know. You know, if the whole problem is you go where people already are, right? You go where there's already a community. It's an interesting dilemma I think a lot of us are in, because I don't want to support Jack Dorsey and his crazy liberal views, and yet at Jack, there's the guy who's the head of Twitter, who's making these ridiculous decisions, who's discriminated against people he doesn't like. And listen, you know, it's a private company, so I mean, this is their prerogative. You can choose to let somebody say what you want them to say or not. If you know, it's just like if you were a business owner, a restaurant owner. We've talked about before that, you know, restaurant and businesses can set their own gun policies because it's their private property. You can set your own speech policy. You can say, you know, I don't want to hear that kind of language around here or whatever. So it's within their right to do it. But when you have these giant, you know, internet companies, and I think some of these companies are not as giant. We're finding that out now. I think they've inflated their numbers. I think they have really given way to the psychological. The temptation to only value your company based on the psychological concept of, well, it's not how much we're actually worth, but how much we can convince you, how many things we can distort to convince you we're worth way, way more than we really are. And that's a big deal. I think you're seeing that now with the Facebook prices, the Twitter prices, and things like that. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, like I said, I'm conflicted. I haven't made up my mind yet. But you know, we still, right now, I will say this: the internet, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, the ability to exchange information with like-minded people at lightning speed is really, really valuable. This is the reason why we're able to be as successful as we are. And I think we would be even more successful if these platforms would just allow freedom instead of these algorithms that are suppressing conservative thought, conservative speech. Because if one thing is clear, and everybody out there listening to me knows it, you've been on Facebook before, and you have seen somebody rattle off a bunch of CNN talking points, and if you try to, and it's because that's all they've seen. That's all they've seen as CNN talk. They haven't seen somebody say, you know what, this doesn't make sense to me. I think that President Donald Trump is having some really amazing geopolitical successes. His tax cuts are working. Saudi Arabia recognized Israel's right to exist. And, you know, they haven't heard any of that. You go to correct them and they think, wow, it's just nuts. And if I think, obviously, in flyover country, in middle America, conservative thought is very popular. And that popularity is being suppressed on social media, on YouTube. We all know that to be true. And it's because they're scared of the truth. It's because they don't want more people getting the truth, and they so vehemently disagree with us that they are willing to be really totalitarian in their thinking. Do you remember when liberal meant freedom? Do you remember the context of a classical liberal? It actually meant freedom, but then the progressives took over that idea because they really operate on the idea that you're too stupid to make these decisions, and we really need a central planner. We need a national planner that plans everybody's lives for them, that can control them, whether it's with thermostat economics or whether it's with social engineering, whether it's with choice, architecture, whatever it is, you're too stupid. The people are too stupid to voluntarily figure this out amongst themselves through voluntary cooperation. The progressives want to control everything. They really do. They want to control how you think. They want to control which light bulbs you use. They want to control which toilets you use. They want to know how much energy is coming out of your home, from your dishwasher to your microwave. And by the way, with everything that we're figuring out on social media and what Facebook was doing with Cambridge Analytica, these smart appliances, don't think that they're not reporting something. I mean, I think we have an obligation to have a healthy American skepticism. It happened again, folks. I'm going to be honest. It happened again. We were talking about, me and my wife, we were talking amongst ourselves because we had family that live away from us, and they were telling us about how they made pork belly. Joe, have you ever had pork belly? It's essentially just bacon, but it's one slice. Anyway, it's delicious. I've had it at a restaurant before, and you got to get the top crisp. There's a whole method to do it. You can cure it yourself for a while, or you can cook it. Anyway, we were talking about, well, I wonder if you can get it. Where do you get pork belly? That's sort of, we got to talk to a butcher. We turn on our TV. We go to the YouTube app because we were gonna watch a cartoon for my daughter. And what's the first suggested thing that we need to click on? Oh, there's some pork belly recipes. Weird. So, I mean, are we to conclude this thing's listening to us? Right? I mean, isn't that the logical conclusion? Very strange. The phone number, 870-275-9799. Now, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to get a family council update. This particular update has to do with the Baphomet statue. The Satanic Temple is still stirring up controversy. The family council with a video report coming your way next. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
The border wall. We're not going to give the American people the one thing that they voted for, the one thing that they wanted. And then, I interviewed this lady, Maria Espinoza, a wonderful woman who is a director of the Remembrance Project, and she's remembering Americans whose lives have been lost because of illegal immigrants who've come to this country and have murdered people. So there is an economic argument, and there's also the safety argument, and the government needs to do its job and keep us safe from, foreign actors coming in here when we can prevent this. And that's the key is, do you believe this, David? Do you believe we can stop this? Like we can prevent illegal immigration or at least severely reduce it to what it is now, from what it is now?
Well, I think the latter is the case. I think you can severely reduce it. I think that the border is a must. I think what they're talking about is $24 billion. And in the scope
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back. So, let me tell you how my weekend went real quick, Joe. So I went to the lake with my family. I had some family in town, and I had other family that volunteered to watch my daughter. And so me and my wife, we calculated. We were like, okay, we're going to have to drive to the lake and drive home, but we've got like a 10-hour reprieve here. And we can go to the lake. Well, I guess about halfway through the day, my wife dropped her phone in about 20 feet of water. And at first it was just, well, that's no good. Now we have to buy another phone. Then it was, man, no one's going to be able to contact you now until you get another phone. You have those digital withdrawal. You're thinking ahead. But then it dawned on the both of us, really more my wife than me, that all of our photos for the past year of, basically my daughter, were on that phone. And my wife does use the cloud. I didn't know this. She does use the cloud, but it was full. Anyway, there was a ton of photos. It was like 1,400 photos that were not backed up anywhere. And this caused a little bit of an emotional reaction. One that I didn't anticipate, but I'm told that this has happened to a lot of people. And at least when I told everybody on Facebook, there was a lot of moms out there that said, oh my gosh, I can't imagine something like that happening. I'm the kind of guy that thinks in the back of my mind, I'm like, what did people do before photos? I mean, people used to not even have these photos. They had to rely on their brains. That's not to disparage it. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Or 10 years ago, if you just take 10 years ago, nobody had as much stuff on their phone as they do now. I mean, the iPhone came out in, 2008? Barack Obama was still using a BlackBerry during 2008. So, anyway, the point is, we ended up getting a diver. We called a diver. He couldn't come out there. Anyway, so this diver comes out, and he does this fantastic job, and he recovers the phone, because we put like a buoy out right where we dropped it. And I'm told the story is a little bit more fantastic than that, because we had to go home. Do what? June 29, 2007, the first iPhone. So, yeah. So, it's been 10 years. People just didn't do this. They didn't have this. I mean, they had phones with pictures on them, but nothing like it is now. So, anyway, we got the phone back, and that's kind of how my weekend was. It went from and by the way, I didn't realize this, but according to the diver that helped us, iPhone 7s are very close to being waterproof. And he said he looked at it, and it's in a bag of rice right now, but he looked at it and he said, hey, there's no water damage to the screen. This thing is, you let it dry it's probably going to be fine. There's all kinds of tutorials online, by the way, on how to revive a waterlogged iPhone. Some people put them in ovens, very, very low temp, like 100 degrees. People leave them in bags of rice for an hour. For 4 weeks. But anyway, the bottom line is we recovered it, and we're now going to religiously back up everything we have on a hard drive or buy more cloud space or whatever. So, yes, Joe.
Let's say if you want to heat something up to 100 degrees, just wait till noon, go put it on the concrete outside. Yeah, it'll all be good.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you could cook an egg as well. Unusually cool weather, though, this August. I will say this. I'll say that. So, the Family Council, they have an update for you. Satanic temples still saber-rattling. They want to have a rally. They want to bring their Baphomet statue. Here is Family Council from familycouncil.org with their video update.
This is news from Family Council. This week, the Satanic Temple announced it will bring a 7.5-foot statue of Baphomet, a part man, part goat figure, to Little Rock as part of a protest at the Capitol building in August. The group had previously threatened to place the statue on the Arkansas State Capitol grounds after the legislature moved forward with plans to install a monument of the Ten Commandments on the Capitol lawn. However, nothing ever came of that threat because monuments cannot be built without legislative approval. The Satanic Temple says it opposes Arkansas's monument of the Ten Commandments because the monument is an endorsement of religion. However, Arkansas's monument of the Ten Commandments is identical to one the U.S. Supreme Court ruled constitutional in Texas, and it is intended to celebrate the Ten Commandments' influence and legacy in our modern legal system. Nevertheless, the two atheist groups are suing to have the monument removed from the Capitol lawn. Jerry Cox of Family Council said, frankly, there just shouldn't be anything controversial about honoring the significance of the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments are one of the earliest examples of the rule of law in human history, and they have a tremendous impact on Western civilization. Family Council, promoting, protecting, and strengthening traditional family values in Arkansas. Visit us online at familycouncil.org.
So later this month in August, the Satanic Temple, they claim they're going to have a rally, and they're bringing the Baphomet statue with them. And I just got to tell you, that's a terrible idea. That's a terrible idea. Joe, you're not even comfortable showing the Baphomet statue anymore, are you? I mean, it's disgusting. It really is. And if you know some of the significance of the symbols there, it's even worse. I mean, it really is. And, you know, some people say, well, they're just doing this to make, you know, the Christian right mad and everything else. I think it's a little more than that, don't you? Anybody else? I mean, to me, it's crystal clear. It's definitely a spiritual component. The other day at the Faulkner County Tea Party, the one thing I wish I would have said that I didn't, I talked a little bit about the spiritual component, and I said there's a spiritual component behind some of this. And what I should have said, there's a spiritual component in front of this. Yeah, I mean, you know, if you look at this world, if you look at this world in the context of it being the shadow of actual reality, we tend to think this is reality. But anyway. Kind of got to try to think about things a little differently. The phone number, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. You can call or text that number. Also, over at Facebook, facebook.com/Conduit News, we're up and going. And YouTube, feel free, go to YouTube, subscribe to Conduit News so you get the smaller videos, and click the little bell for notifications so that you will get the smaller videos. For example, we're going to have our Patreon video, which we posted last week for our Patreon subscribers. You can go to patreon.com/CNR. That stands for Conduit News Radio, if you're interested in helping the show out on Patreon. But we'll put our Patreon video from last week up on our YouTube channel this week. And we'll have another Patreon video this week for our Patreon listeners. So if you will click the little bell for notifications on the YouTube channel, you'll get the you'll get notified when we have something new, because it's not all the time Conduit News Radio. Sometimes it's other things as well. So you got to stay tuned for that stuff, folks. When we come back, I'm going to tell you how just 73 people of 275,000 on Arkansas Works reported working. That's right, 73 of the 275,000 people on Medicaid Expansion Arkansas Works reported working in a program, in a solution, quote, solution to program work requirements that was fought over, was debated back and forth, the line item veto scheme that was unconstitutional, all of that. For 73 people the first month. I mean, if I was on the side of the work requirements, I'd be a little embarrassed, wouldn't you?
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Of our budget, $24 billion is not a big number. And so if it takes them taking part of the military budget to do that, I would suggest they do it, because you can knock it in the head quite a bit. And obviously they're going to have to change the immigration rules and regs that they have. That I think that Ryan and McConnell have been an embarrassment. I think I wish both of them would go. Lord have mercy, I wish both of them would go. But I do believe that it could knock it big in the head if we put up the border wall. And now then we also have to do our part to the chain migration and a number of things that are going on there. We just have to change the laws on that.
Well,
so it's going to be a difficult battle, but it's one that I think needs to be waged.
Yeah, and you've got Senator Cotton, and you've got him, attempting to put forth that legislation to bring us towards a merit-based system of immigration. I think that's really good, really bold moves there. Let's talk about China. So I've been talking about the last couple of weeks. Donald Trump, he points out German hypocrisy, saying that you want us to protect you from Russia, yet you make Russia rich. We have China, who's a belligerent economic actor. They're expanding their military into the South China Sea. They have a giant economy. The CIA, the FBI wants to supplant. They say that they want to supplant the United States as the superpower of the world, and yet the Governor Asa Hutchinson has made trips to China and has secured these 4 companies that are coming over here to supposedly create jobs. Does that make sense? Is it hypocritical for us to be in a trade war with China and maybe even a hush-hush cold war with China, and yet we're going to make these communist Chinese companies wealthy and let them use our resources to do it?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, this whole thing, and I think I've listened to the whole show today and all the comments that you've made about the China influence in the Arkansas economy is it's just staggering to me to realize that we're out courting them when the head of the FBI says that China is our #1 enemy, and what they're attempting to do to the United States through the tariffs, through all kinds of trade thefts, through the intellectual intelligence and knowledge that there's thieving from us. What is it Donald Trump was saying? $500 billion a year. And that's amazing that we would actually go out of our way as a state, through the governor's office, want to attract the communist country, China, into our state, and then to support them through all kinds of tax benefits, sell them property and provide benefits, and also invite them to use our legislators as their legislators. It is just amazing and just a travesty to see that occurring in our state, and see that our governor is supporting that effort, and in a big way, and has, like you said, made many trips over there, and to see that happening into the state of Arkansas. And when the entire country is growing at 4.1% on GDP, our state is flat, has a flat growth pattern, and the fact is that we have a problem with having a state that has business. The climate for business is not that good, and then for us to use citizens' taxes to attract a communist country to come bring in business here is just
frustrating.
Great deal.
Yeah, it's certainly frustrating. Here is Mike Preston. You mentioned the idea that when we had the Chinese here, we said that these are your legislators now. The director of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, which works closely with the governor to give away this taxpayer money and to recruit these communist companies here. This is what he said at the press conference when they were welcoming Rui to the state.
Chairman Chu, Rui, welcome to Arkansas. And then, Chairman, you'll look out in the audience and you'll see multiple members of the governor's cabinet. We're also here to support you. You'll see multiple members of the state legislative assembly. They're here to support you, and specifically Senator Caldwell, Senator Ingram, Representative Murdoch, Representative Hollowell. these are your senators and your representatives now. You call on them and they're going to help you. Guarantee it. And Senator English, I saw you out there too. Thank you for being here as well.
I mean, what was that? I mean,
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine, and we are thrilled that you're starting the beginning of your week with us here. Thank you. I hope you had a great weekend. This headline is interesting from the website conduitforaction.org. You can go there now. You can subscribe to receive their new posts. But at conduitforaction.org, this headline came out as we started the weekend, as we went into this last weekend. Just 73 people of the 275,000 on Arkansas Works report working. The first round of reporting for new work considerations under Obamacare Medicaid expansion, the program here we call and renamed Arkansas Works, were announced. While the governor and supporters of his effort call them work requirements, just 73 people out of the 275,000 that are on the program reported work hours. That is just 0.02% of all enrollees on the program. Governor Hutchinson called these numbers, quote, encouraging. Several months ago, Conduit for Action highlighted how this work consideration effort was really just a distraction and labeled as a work requirement. The work consideration requirement was granted through a waiver from the federal government. The governor has successfully shifted the conversation on Obamacare Medicaid expansion to where we are debating whether this is an effective work requirement instead of debating how and when to end a socialist program from a socialist president, Barack Obama. The carefully crafted language argument from the governor is that he wants to move people from welfare into work. If that is the true goal, this is setting up to be a colossal failure. It seems the actual goal is to protect the $2 billion revenue stream of taxpayer dollars currently flowing to health insurance companies and hospitals, and some eventually to elected officials through campaign donations. We want to protect that $2 billion at all costs. It's basically like Smaug from The Hobbit. Most people are entirely exempt from having to comply with any sort of work/volunteer/education consideration. Only around, listen, of the 275,000 people on the program, only around 25,000 are currently subject to any sort of work consideration. This group of people are aged 30 to 49. On average, people aged 30 to 49 would represent the most likely group to actually be working. If you assume that, the numbers may get even worse when other age groups begin reporting on whether they considered working or taking a class on healthy living, because that's one of the exemptions. By the numbers, of the 25,000 people who were subject to this initial work consideration, over 15,000 of them were exempt. Of the remaining 10,304 required to report, 2,395 used the website to report other exemptions. Some of these exemptions include 187 people were exempt because they received unemployment benefits. 164 people were temporarily incapacitated. 128 people were caring for incapacitated people, 79 people being treated for substance abuse, 24 people were enrolled full-time in school or job training program. By the way, that one right there, 24 people are in school or in a job training program. That number, 24 in the job training program, that may be worse than the 75, the 73 people. Only 73 people reporting their work hours. Only 445 people used the website to report that they met work requirements. Of this, 351 reported they met food stamp work requirements. 73 reported their work hours. 27 reported volunteering. 18 reported hours spent looking for work. 8 were part-time students in school or training programs. So instead of calling this work requirements, Conduit for Action is now calling it work consideration. Work consideration exemptions. You are automatically exempt from any type of work consideration, meaning if you think about working, you don't have to think about working if you live in a home with a dependent child age 17 or younger, you receive unemployment benefits, you are pregnant, you are a full-time student, you care for an incapacitated person or a dependent child under 6, you are over 50 years of age. According to an earlier statement from a DHS spokesperson, half of current enrollees would be exempt from any type of work consideration requirement. If you are not in the majority of people that will receive an exemption, you still don't have to get a job or work, though. You have options. The work consideration requirement states that you can choose between some combination of the options as long as you reach 80 hours per month. It's kind of like a buffet. You just got to make sure you come out on the end with 80 hours of something. If you're among the group which considers 40 hours per week a normal work schedule, that means people with that mindset are expected to work 173 hours per month, not 80 hours per month. What are your options? Well, you could volunteer. You could look for a job up to 40 hours per month, which is one 9-hour day per week. You could participate in a job search training up to 40 hours per month, again, one 9-hour day per week. You could participate in activities and programs through the Arkansas Department of Workforce Services. You could take a class on health insurance using the health system or healthy living up to 20 hours per year, 2.5 days per year. Participate in on-the-job training. You could participate in vocational training. You could enroll in an educational program. You could then the last one is actual employment or self-work. Actual employment or self-employment work. So because of the vast options, able-bodied working-age adults can work 0 hours a month and continue to receive health insurance paid for by the taxpayers and further subsidized by hard-working Arkansans paying more in premiums. Of the roughly 10,000 people subject to the work consideration requirement, 7,464 did not report anything on the website. Although they failed to meet the requirement, they will have 2 more months to be compliant. It is possible there may be some short-term savings for having a few hundred enrollees never report any work considerations. But is that achieving the goal of these requirements? Moving people from welfare to work, or just saving money by a small percentage of people never reporting? Either way, it's not sustainable. This is an Obamacare Medicaid expansion program. We know it's not sustainable. We've always known that there's no long-term funding source. The only way to continue funding this program is to either shift money from other state agencies or to raise your taxes. Now, on that, shifting money from other state agencies, let's go to the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette's headline, because everybody's trying to take a victory lap. Andy Davis, state Medicaid spending falls off. $22 million drop first in officials' memory. Services unchanged, the governor says. So they're reporting, they're trying to take victory laps, that Arkansas Medicaid spending fell by $22 million. The overall decrease came despite slightly higher spending on Arkansas Works, as the expanded part of the state's Medicaid program is known. So here's the thing. They wanted to cut money from traditional Medicaid. This was their plan. This was ACE's plan. This is what the task force on health care was really about. They wanted to take money away from traditional Medicaid so that they could free up money and spend it for able-to-work adults who don't work. So the Medicaid, traditional Medicaid, is for the truly needy, for the truly poor, for those who truly can't take care of themselves. Arkansas Works is not for those types of people. Arkansas Works is for able-bodied adults to get free insurance. And many of these able-bodied adults, as we are seeing, don't work out of this 75,000 population. This whole thing, just so you know, Medicaid expansion, to expand Medicaid or not to expand Medicaid, it was all about one thing. From a conservative standpoint that Republicans rejected, big government Republicans rejected. There are 3 million people in the state of Arkansas. Do we want 1 million people? Do we want 1 million people on Medicaid? That's what this was about. Republicans and the establishment said yes, because the insurance companies and the hospitals told them to, because they want their $2 billion. So we have 3 million people in this state, and roughly 1 million of the 3 million are on Medicaid. Congratulations. Arkansas is the welfare state. We should change the name on the back of our license plates to the welfare state, because that's where we are. Now, in order to pay for this in order to pay for the new population, they realize that they have a huge problem, and they still have a huge problem. $22 million is a drop in the bucket to this, but the state has to have every bit of money it can. That's why they tried to raise our taxes multiple times. That's why they failed a couple of times, thanks to the conservatives in the House that stood up to the establishment. They couldn't get the votes. But now they want to say we've saved $22 million in Medicaid. This is the first time this has ever happened. Well, you set out to do it by reducing spending in traditional Medicaid. This was your plan. I can go back and play the audio so that you can shift the money from the truly needy to those who are not truly needy. That is really the immoral side of this, is you have a program set up for the truly needy that is insufficiently cared for. You have people on waiting lists and things like that. And you create a new program. You bend over backwards to create a new program for those who are not truly needy. Something doesn't add up, still doesn't add up about all this. But the governor says that the $22 million savings came without a change in services. I'm just letting you know what he said. Now back to this Conduit for Action article about the work requirements. The cost of the work requirement. No, actually, health insurance. To be compliant, enrollees must log into the state website and report their work considerations or exemptions. Health insurance companies are now being given the log-in information for these enrollees, meaning health insurance companies are now getting the information of the enrollees so that they can report whether or not they've worked. They can fill out the form themselves, not the actual enrollee, because the health insurance companies are terrified of losing $500 a month per person, whether or not they go to the doctor, regardless. The health insurance companies have every incentive to have their enrollees on the program as they receive $500 per month in taxpayer money for premiums, whether the person uses their health insurance or not. That is $3,732,000 per month in lost premiums to the insurance companies for those 7,464 people not reporting. $3 million a month. That's almost $4 million a month that they lose if the 7,000 people don't report. So the insurance companies are getting on the phones, they're calling people, they got the login information, and they're going to make sure that you report an exemption so that they still get their $500 a month ahead. That may be the biggest slap in the face. That may be the biggest slap in the face of the Arkansas taxpayer ever. If you're a Republican that has supported the private option and ACE's version, Arkansas Works, and you genuinely thought it would work, you genuinely thought you could get work requirements, do you really want to look to people in the eye and say that you're okay with the insurance companies having their login information, trying to save every dime of taxpayer money they're getting now? I mean, the whole point of work requirements is to reduce the enrollment, right? Isn't that what you guys all said? You really want to look the taxpayer in the eye with a straight face and say you're for work requirements to reduce enrollment? but you're okay with the insurance companies essentially $4 million a month is at stake, and you're gonna let them call these people and make sure that they sign up, make sure that they list their exemption? Are you really serious? Are you really think that this is that we have been honest and upfront with the conservatives that voted Republican and put you in office? You really think that you're doing right by the people? Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe work requirements were never supposed to reduce enrollment. Maybe that's not it. Obviously, the insurance companies don't want the work requirements to reduce enrollment. Let me say that again. The insurance companies that are an integral part of the plan that is in orbit right now do not want your work requirement rules to reduce the population that are on the program right now. So, what is the goal here? I'm going to go out on a limb and say, neither do you. You Republicans in government don't want the rolls to decrease. And why would we think that? If the insurance companies don't want them to go down, when have you deviated from what the insurance companies want? So you give the insurance companies the login information. The state gives the insurance companies the login information for these people who are on the program, and the insurance companies can pay somebody minimum wage or well above minimum wage, because we're talking about losing $4 million a month to the insurance companies, to call, to go down a list, to walk, to go to their house. You could send door-to-door people with an iPad and log them in and submit their exemptions, and that's $500 right there a month, guaranteed. They have an exemption, they don't qualify. They don't have to go to work. We still get our $500 a month. The incentive here is a fraud against the people of this state, against the taxpayer, against you who's driving to work right now with your hands on 10 and 2, wondering how you're going to, pay this bill or that bill, while people who could be out doing what you're doing are getting a free lunch. The fact that the insurance companies have this login information exposes the whole thing as being a complete fraud. This isn't about reducing enrollment. This isn't about giving people, lifting them out of poverty. This is about keeping the insurance companies rich. And to suggest otherwise is wrong, unless you want to go out and make a public statement now and say, we are taking the login information away from the insurance companies. We're not going to let them do this. This is wrong. The line between government and insurance needs to be stark, and it needs to be a contrast. We don't need to have this blurry line between government bureaucrats and insurance companies where you can't tell where one ends and the other begins, where the private and the public interest is what? All private? Not really public. We got to take a break. That really irritates me. Back in a moment. That is so offensive to me, who actually is a citizen of this state.
Right. I mean, think about it, people. They are courting the communist country, China, to come in and own a business here, and we're going to support them by giving them enormous amount of tax credits and giving them money, folks, that we paid into the government to bring in a communist country who is
spying on us. I mean, the FBI
destroying the United States of America.
Yeah. The FBI says that they're and the CIA, that they're spying on us, like that they have investigations in all 50 states, according to reports, about their economic activities, and all roads lead to China. Then you have Tucker Carlson over at Fox News talking about how they're lobbying people in D.C. left and right like crazy. I just don't understand why. I feel like the governor needs to address this at some point. I feel like he needs to address the fact that, China is a bigger threat to us than Russia.
It's a PHP parody.
Hey, man, you got any of that marble rock?
Yeah, I've got the hookup.
Thanks. I need a fix real bad. I'm itching to grow some government.
How much you need?
I'm gonna need a taxpayer's dime bag.
No problem, sir. 1 taxpayer dime of marble rock. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. They don't call it Little Rock for nothing. Am I right?
Did you know your state representative or state senator may be addicted to growing government? The drug is called marble rock, and too much of it will cause marble fever. Watch for the warning signs. Does your legislator suddenly display a lack of humility when faced with basic questions? Does he or she suddenly develop hubris and pride that was not present during the campaign for office? These are signs they might be smoking the terrible drug, marble rock. The solution? Detox. Vote for detox. Vote to send them home for their own good.
Warning! Some politicians once voted out of office will not go home and stay in Little Rock to get their fix by lobbying, also known as the Burris Syndrome.
PHP Parody.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yeah, as a follow-up, I want to remind you that there is for the privilege of doing business in the state of Arkansas, the state of Arkansas has a tax that they put on insurance company premiums. So here's your perverse incentive. Here is why the insurance companies, the government gave the insurance companies the login information for Arkansas Works recipients who are supposed to log in and submit their exemptions to get them out from having to work. Because with each premium charged, that the state is actually the one that owns these policies, which is so weird. But they use Blue Cross Blue Shield, $500 a month, and for each one of those policies, the state then taxes the policy and gets revenue off of it. And so, the federal government is still paying, 90-95% of this program, right? And so you have this basically this money laundering operation. They send it through the insurance companies. Arkansas then taxes it, and the federal government pays the bill. And now Arkansas has got this revenue. So the government itself has an incentive to keep as many people on the program as they possibly can. So Arkansas Works programs, or this Arkansas Works program, that's why the government gives the insurance companies the login information, their addresses. Go. I'm telling you, if there is not a door-to-door program where you actually send somebody out there with an iPad, I would be shocked. I would be shocked if the insurance companies are not going door-to-door for this population, it's very manageable. Go to their addresses and make sure that they fill out their little sheet. It's worth $500 a pop. I mean, it's a no-brainer. The premium tax explains it, though. The fact that the state of Arkansas will lose money if through the work requirements it results in a decrease in enrollment. That's why the insurance companies have the information, and you have basically you have the same goals, which is we want to keep the status quo. We want to keep enrollment up. We want to keep that money flowing in, and it's a fraud. It is a fraud that is perpetrated against the people, the taxpayers of this state. You want to know why Governor Asa Hutchinson believes so much in corporate welfare when it comes to Chinese companies and giving them your money? Because he believes in corporate welfare by giving Blue Cross Blue Shield $2 billion a year of your money. And what does that do? Oh, healthcare. The healthcare industry is it's one of the best economic drivers of this state. We employ so many people. Well, you know what? It's government subsidized at this point. Well, when it comes to Arkansas Works and in other places too. So you have these people in government that think, well, that's the way that's the only way to do it. Let's get some Chinese, regardless of what the FBI says, regardless of what the CIA says. Let's get the Chinese companies to invest $1.4 billion in 4 different companies. They're communist Chinese companies. We'll let them use our resources. We'll let them use our timber, and then we'll make the products, and then they'll sell the products back to us. And guess what? They're stealing $600 billion in intellectual property a year. And the first hour, we told you on Friday, when we got off the air on Friday, Cody Highland with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Arkansas indicted 2 Chinese men for stealing Arkansas rice technology at the Dale Bumpers Institute in Stuttgart. But let's keep doing business with the Chinese. Sounds like a great plan. Was that? I mean, that is so offensive to me, who actually is a citizen of this state.
Right. I mean, think about it, people. They are courting the communist country, China, to come in and own a business here, and we're going to support them by giving them enormous amount of tax credits and giving them money, folks, that we paid into the government to bring in a communist country who is
spying on us. I mean, the FBI
destroying the United States of America.
Yeah. The FBI says that they're and the CIA that they're spying on us, like that they have investigations in all 50 states, according to reports, about their economic activities, and all roads lead to China. Then you have Tucker Carlson over at Fox News talking about how they're lobbying people in D.C. left and right like crazy. I just don't understand why. I feel like the governor needs to address this at some point. I feel like he needs to address the fact that, China is a bigger threat to us than Russia. But for some reason, because of all the hysteria with Russia, Asa had nothing but negative things to say about Donald Trump's Helsinki press conference. And yet we're doing business with the Chinese. We can't get them in here fast enough. Something doesn't add up there. There's a double standard there. It doesn't make sense.
Well, it doesn't make sense for sure. And you're going to have a press that will never ask that question of him, will not press him on that issue whatsoever. And it is as if they're complicit on it. And then you have the departments of the government down there putting out propaganda pieces like what you shared on the radio show today, promoting the CEO of the state of Arkansas that runs it like a business. There were so many things that you have to laugh at them thinking that he would. The guy's never run a business ever, that he's possibly ever going to be able to run a business. And they're going to call it, they're claiming that he's actually run the state of Arkansas like a business. It would never happen that way. So the man is just, he's a tyrant.
Yeah. Well, I know that, I disagree with his economic philosophy. I get that. If that's fine. Like, we disagree. I don't think you should take taxpayer dollars and give it to companies. Like, it's corporate welfare, whatever. I don't think it works. There's studies to back it up. We could have that argument all day long. But if you're going,
I'm with you on that. Baker's got some great information.
Exactly. But can we at least just say, okay, if we're going to do it, which all other states do this, they try to sweeten the deal or whatever, why does it have to be China? Why China? Why not some other company? And that's the question here, is why China? Anyway.
I don't know. I don't know. I wish I had the answer, and I think that needs to be questioned, but it's apparently not going to be questioned, and the propaganda.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
We're getting Mr. Jason Dobson queued up in the line, so we're just going to wait on that. We had a good first hour, by the way. You can check it out at conduitnews.com or the Facebook video, facebook.com/conduitnews, where we really highlighted how China is in the mainstream media, the news, the national news. It's everywhere about this threat of China, and so in the context of the Arkansas men being indicted for stealing the rice technology, it's a big deal. Hey, folks, welcome to the program. We got Mr. Jason Dobson on the line. He is a candidate for the Arkansas House State Representative a candidate for State Representative District 12. Jason, great to have you on the program. How are you?
Thank you, Paul. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about District 12 geographically. I was looking at the map, and it's quite an interestingly drawn district.
Yeah. It's definitely a bizarre boundary lines on our district.
Yeah. So, what are we talking about here? Like, what are some of the main areas? We're looking at it now. I see like Helena, West Helena. So you get a portion of that.
Yeah. All of Phillips County, a portion of Arkansas County, a portion of Lincoln County, and a small portion of Deshay County.
Mm-hmm. Well, there we go. All right, so Jason, why do you want to run? You're running as a Republican. The seat is currently held by Democrat Chris Ritchie. Jason, why did you decide to throw your hat in the ring for District 12?
Well, Chris Ritchie's never been challenged. He's got a horrible voting record. He doesn't represent the values that I feel like we need represented in our district, and just feel like no one's speaking out for us in Little Rock.
So, have you been hearing from people? I mean, when you're on the campaign trail, a lot of times people go door to door, or they go to a lot of events. What are the people saying on the ground there?
People are behind us. They're behind us. They understand. They're kind of shocked. An overwhelming number of people don't even know who the representative is, and then the small portion that do know who he is, they're shocked when they see his voting record. So we're getting the word out. We're spreading his voting record around, letting people know what their options are.
Yeah, I have a flyer here. Matter of fact, be informed. Let's throw this up there real quick, Joe. Thank you for our online audience. Do you know how your representative voted? Chris Ritchie, Democrat, for District 12. His voting record. You have some votes here from 2013. HB 1037 prohibits abortion after 20 weeks. Did not vote. Another bill prohibits abortion in the, if a fetal heartbeat is detected, voted no on that. You just kind of go down the list here. To tell us, what are your views on abortion?
Pro-life, 100% pro-life from conception.
Okay, well, that's very straightforward. And I think most people are. Then we have on the Second Amendment. Look at this thing. See, a Second Amendment, HB 1243 of 2013. This is Chris Ritchie's voting record. Authorizes university staff to carry a concealed handgun. Voted no on that. SB 896 of 2013 allows a church that operates a private school to permit concealed carry on church property. Did not vote on that one. HB 1434 of 2015 allows a concealed carry permit holder to carry in polling places. Voted no there. What are your thoughts on the Second Amendment, Jason Dobson?
It shall not be infringed. It's pretty clear. I'm a Second Amendment guy, and clearly my opponent is not. He wants to tell you, I don't know if he's for complete confiscation. I don't know if he is. He may be. I don't know that, but he definitely wants to tell you where you can carry, which is all the same to me.
Yeah, it's certainly the most popular form is essentially the Second Amendment is treated differently than all the rest of the amendments. Meaning, you got to check in with the government in order to carry. Of course, with Act 746, what are your views on Act 746? Are you familiar with it? Constitutional carry, that sort of thing.
I am, and it's just the fact that we have to have things like that is upsetting because the Constitution is very clear to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people a lot of people agree with that for sure. It was like the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Arkansas back in 2015, we tried to clarify, strengthen the Arkansas religious freedom or the basically mirror the federal Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And I kept thinking to myself, why do we even have a Religious Freedom Restoration Act? Isn't the First Amendment perfectly sufficient? But no, you got to clarify these days, right?
Well, I guess the government has to have something to do.
Well, it's just, the sad thing is, it really the fact that you have to clarify some of these rights that used to be just understood, it shows you how far we've departed from understanding our founding documents. I mean, we don't understand them, and that's why you have these movements to try to clarify. This is what the founding fathers meant. I got this. Let's go down here on taxes. Your opponent, Democrat Chris Ritchie, HB 1162 of 2017, put sales taxes on digital downloads, voted yes. Raised sales taxes on soft drinks and candy, voted yes. Puts income tax on unemployment compensation, yes. These are, I certainly remember these. These are a lot closer to my memory than the ones from 2013. So do you think the people of District 12 want lower taxes, or do you think they want higher taxes?
Well, I would hope that everyone would want lower taxes. Taxes and regulations is what's keeping us down here in the Delta. We overtaxed and underappreciated down here. That's how we feel.
So talk about that. I mean, overtaxed, underappreciated. You mentioned regulations as well. I mean, it's clear that, at least according to the platform, that the Republican Party stands against higher regulations and against increasing your taxes, right?
Well, it should be clear, yeah.
It should be clear. Okay. Well, if you read the platform, it is limited government. It's back in there, thank goodness. So, I guess why do you think we have? Why is there a Democrat representing District 12 right now? Is it because this may be a district that's just kind of the last holdout? I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
It is. There's a lot of the older blue dog Democrats here. The Democrats took care of the farmers previously. Over the last 16, 20 years, more and more of those kind of moderate Democrats are coming back over to the Republican Party because the left is moving so far to the left. But more and more people are kind of seeing the light, understanding that government's getting in the way, and you can look at the state. The state's getting painted red, and it's moving east. It's our time.
House Bill 1267, your opponent in 2017 voted to increase the tax and fees on tires, tax increase on remounting tires. He voted for that. This bill has started a regulatory boom for big government types. Because now they got these meetings. How are they going to implement this? But bottom line is, he voted. When you go to get new tires, you're now paying more money because of that yes vote. It contributed to it, right?
That's right. That's the Democratic way: more taxes, more government.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, I mean, with the respect, I have to mention this for some intellectual honesty. That bill was proposed by a Republican. But it just goes to show you that even in the Republican Party, we have sometimes we deviate from what that platform says.
Well, we have a majority. We have all the leadership. I think we could be doing more to cut out some of these taxes. Get it off the people's shoulders. Give it back to the people.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're talking with Jason Dobson. He's the Arkansas State. He's a candidate for the Arkansas State representative seat, District 12. And he's running against Democrat Chris Ritchie.
Never been challenged.
He's never been challenged, really. So how long has he been down there? How long has he been up there, rather?
2012. 2012 was his first.
Okay. So never been challenged. Well, here we go. Have a Democrat versus a Republican. We'll see what happens. He also voted present when it came time to increase the gas tax or refer that to the people. He voted yes on the internet sales tax, SB 140. That was Jake Files, now convicted Senator Jake Files' bill that he ran to try to get more money from the people when it comes to online sales purchase. What do you think of that internet sales tax? I mean, I know the United States Supreme Court now says, Jason, they say that, hey, the state of Arkansas will be able to require out-of-state sellers to keep up with Arkansas's tax code and remit taxes. But, I mean, it's going to mean higher prices for everybody, right? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Right. Well, I mean, it's a double-edged sword because, you know, the brick and mortar, the mom and pops, they have to charge tax. So it's kind of not fair to them that you can go on the internet, buy it cheaper, and not pay tax. But ultimately, I'm against it. I'm against the tax because I am a true conservative.
Yeah. This is some interesting fraud prevention. I didn't know this, but Chris Ritchie back in 2013 voted no on a bill to require a photo ID to vote.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness.
And again in 17 voted. Yeah.
Why? Why would we not? I mean, with the way we have things going with illegal immigration, you know what I thought was interesting is that the president is you know, all of this talk and nonsense about, you know, Russia. You know, Donald Trump won the election because of Russia. I mean, that's essentially what they want people to. Right. They want to come to that conclusion. Donald Trump's not saying, okay, all right, well, let's solve the meddling problem by requiring voter ID. I'm like, wow. What a fantastic comeback, because that's exactly right. Let's have ID to vote.
That's right. And even, you know, the Democrats are against that. I don't know. They have all kinds of lame excuses for it. There's really no good excuse, but just the efficiency. You just talk to the poll workers. Just the efficiency of it. Never mind the fraud prevention, but just the efficiency of it is enough to put it in.
Yeah. Requiring drug testing to receive government benefits, he voted no. Required ID to use food stamp benefits, voted no. Requires voters to provide ID when voting, voted no. That's that's the second one, the second time. Well, Jason, I have to say here, it just on paper with this voting record, I mean, it seems like he certainly votes the way the Democrat Party platform would suggest that a Democrat would vote.
That's right. He's a liberal. There's no doubt.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I mean, you know, you leave it up to the people. You give the facts out there. Put the facts out there. This is how you voted, and then let the people decide. You know, but at least you're an alternative to this agenda. It's like this is a liberal, progressive tax spend agenda. No accountability. No ID to vote. And I offer the alternative. I mean, is that what you're hoping to do?
That's exactly what I'm hoping to do. You know, we've kind of been forced to just accept it. Like I said, he's never been challenged, and at least we're going to have an option in November to something different.
Well, I want to thank you for running. You know, I guess when you think about it, you know, you put your hat out there, you throw your hat in the ring. Right now, Chris Ritchie is your state representative, and I would imagine you disagree with how he's voted.
I have. It's upsetting, especially on the abortion and the Second Amendment. I mean, these things are you know, close to my heart, and it bothers me that a local representative that represents me in Little Rock is that you know, that liberal, that far left. That's upsetting.
If people want to know more, Jason Dobson, if people want to know more and get in contact with you, what do they need to do?
Hey, Facebook. Facebook is that's the platform to find out everything.
Okay.
Jason Dobson for state representative. Find us on Facebook and just look at our message, look at his voting record, and make a decision.
Okay. All right. Well, Jason Dobson, it's a pleasure to have you on. Love to do it again soon. And you know, keep me posted. We'll make a YouTube video of this, and you can get it out to your folks as well if they want to know more about you. Okay.
Thanks, Paul. Keep up the good work.
All righty. Jason Dobson, everybody. Great to meet him. Folks, the telephone number 870-275-9799. Going to take a break. Back in a moment.
If you believe the Second Amendment protects your right to defend your home with a firearm, where do you turn if the government confiscates your gun? To the courthouse. The Founding Fathers created your Seventh Amendment right to a civil jury to protect your freedoms. The courthouse is where you fight the overreaching hand of government. And the Brad Hendricks Law Firm is where the fight starts. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 501-221-0444. The Brad Hendricks Law Firm in Little Rock, standing ready using the Seventh Amendment to protect your Second Amendment rights. Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
The machine will kick in whenever that is questioned, because they'll revert to something else. They'll say, "Hey, we cut 100,000." Things like, when are you going to start cutting spending? Because they've increased spending like what is it, about $500 million a year ever since he's been in office.
Yeah.
And they say, "Oh, but hey, we're cutting all kinds of spending. We've cut $1,000 out of the budget."
Well,
like, okay, but you still increase spending by $500 million.
I will tell you this as we wrap things up, David Crow. This hypocrisy, I am not the only one. Conduit News is not the only one to have noticed this hypocrisy with China. There are people who have contacted me who are concerned. And so we're going to continue following this story and see where it gets. Good. David Crow, we got to take a break. I will see you at Larry's Pizza today in Conway for the Faulkner County Tea Party Luncheon. Thank you for inviting me to speak, and it's always a pleasure.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so to recap on the program, we went over this interesting phenomenon that Google, by relying on Wikipedia for their search, if you Google leader of the free world, Angela Merkel from Germany, the Chancellor of Germany, is now known as the leader of the free world because the establishment hates President Donald Trump. Is that not incredible? Is that not incredible? If you wanted to know just how against the grain and anti-status quo the presidency of Donald Trump is, what his presidency represents, I think this is key. I mean, when's the last time an American president, in the age of the internet, can you imagine if you'd ever Googled Barack Obama, leader of the free world, and Barack Obama's name didn't come up when he was president, or George W. Bush, or Bill Clinton, or H.W., or Ronald Reagan? I mean, I know we're getting before the Google existed, but you get my point. Like, it's nuts that the arbiter of truth, and you say what you want to, but Google is at least they're the authority on getting people content based on the words you put into their search bar. Leader of the free world, and it's Angela Merkel. These people are unhinged in their contempt for somebody who's trying to change things. Say what you want to. He is changing the status quo. And people on the left and the right, they hate it. They absolutely hate it. And that makes me think, well, I mean, we don't even have to talk in these shadowy terms. The presidency has been great. The Heritage Foundation themselves said it was a more successful first year than Ronald Reagan. And this year has been even better. So, anyway, thought that was interesting. Also talked about China. We talked about this Virgil article over at Breitbart.com about how, and it quoted Michael Lind of the LBJ School at the University of Texas. The United States must play to its strengths, which are in technology and economics, while avoiding the danger of being trapped in prolonged and costly proxy wars. Talking about China, if we're going to address the threat, the U.S. must also avoid wasting precious defense dollars on equipping the military for imaginary conventional naval wars with China or ground wars with Russia that will never happen. In Cold War II, meaning with China, in Cold War II, economic instruments will eclipse military instruments in importance without replacing them entirely. You have to focus on technology and economics. And what are the Chinese focusing on? They're focusing on technology. To recap, 2 Chinese men were indicted on Friday in Little Rock. They are accused of conspiring to steal rice technology from a facility. It's a Colorado-based company, but they stole the rice from the Dale Bumpers National Rice Research Center in Stuttgart. And these 2 Chinese men were indicted for doing this. It was a $75 million investment, a specific grain of rice that after it's grown, you can extract proteins from it and use it in pharmaceutical medicine. That's what they were trying to do. Intellectual property theft, okay? They were caught by customs with a bunch of rice, okay? Now, you contrast that with what Governor Hutchinson and the Economic Development Commission are doing. They're trying to get more Chinese investment here. It's weird. It doesn't make any sense. I want to know why. I know you do too. You combine that with the fact that the FBI and the CIA say China's our biggest threat, and now we know that Dianne Feinstein, her driver for 20 years, has now been outed as a Chinese mole. Dianne Feinstein is the chairman of the Senate, or was the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Community, and for almost 20 years, her driver, who even went to Chinese consulate events in her stead, has been working for the Chinese this whole time. By the way, who else is working for the Chinese? Who else? Who else is working for the Chinese in this country, and what influence are they putting out? What are they getting? I don't know. What sway do they have over national or state government affairs? That's what I would like to know. Also, we talked about how Twitter suspended Candace Owens for mimicking the New York Times editor's racist tweets. Sarah Jong, she put in Jewish people instead of white people, and exposing this double standard that it's clearly okay. Family Council had a great report about the Satanic Temple. Well, I don't know if it's a great report, but they reported accurately how the Satanic Temple is saber-rattling. They want to have a rally here to protest the Ten Commandments, which the statue that we have, it's ridiculous, but they are planning a rally later this month where they're going to bring their half-goat, half-man, half-woman abomination statue. And then, of course, the top of this hour, we told you that just 73 people of the 275,000 people working on Arkansas Works, people who are on Arkansas Works are working. Only 73 people reported their work hours out of the 275. And this, I want you to understand, they still are going to use the phrase work requirements. 73 people out of 275,000 people, work requirements. If you're just joining us, inside this article over at conduitforaction.org is really the more outrageous, and it's been reported on before, but what is more outrageous is during the rollout of the so-called work requirements, the insurance companies have the login information for the enrollees, which means they can call them, they can log in, they can report the exemptions to make sure they never have to work, and Blue Cross Blue Shield, the insurance companies, never lose their money. That is the real story here. That explains a lot. Once again, Republicans in leadership, they told us, hey, we want work requirements to pull people out of poverty and reduce the enrollment, and work requirements are going to do that. I fail to see how that's going to happen when you're giving the insurance company the names to make sure you call, go door to door with an iPad. You can do all of this and make sure that they put in the exemptions. And the exemptions to not have to work are numerous and broad. And if you're talking about losing $4 million a month, because right now with the current population, there's only 7,000 people, I think, that are expected to participate. 7,000 people out of 275,000. That's $4 million a month that they would lose if those people lost coverage. It's a huge story. The line between government and the insurance companies, there is no line. It doesn't exist because the state wants the premium tax money. That's why they've given them the names. Folks, we're going to be back here tomorrow with a brand new program. On tomorrow, we thank you so much for listening. You can get this program at conduitnews.com, facebook.com/conduitnews, or the YouTube channel. Please go there, subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications. I appreciate you starting the beginning of your week with us here. I hope it's fantastic. Arkansas, be safe.